A new MacBook is being added to Apple's lineup, and we've been told it's a larger 15-inch MacBook Air. But a lot of you are wondering, why are Apple even making a larger MacBook Air when we say have the larger 16-inch MacBook Pro with the option of an M2 Pro and M2 Max inside it? Why does Apple need to make a larger version of one of these basically? Well, today I'm going to explain to you why I think Apple are making a larger MacBook Air. So a very quick and brief history lesson here. The MacBook Air was first introduced in 2008 by Steve Jobs, and he pulled it out of like this paper envelope, but was pretty cool, and it came in at a 13-inch display. Around about 2010 or 2011-ish, Apple redesigned the MacBook Air again, but also introduced an 11-inch MacBook Air. And the main reason why they introduced this MacBook Air, it was because at the time we had netbooks, they were really popular, and a lot of people wanted these small little dinky sort of laptops with them. And Apple made this smaller MacBook Air for quite a few years and sort of retired it in the mid-2010s era. But talk about the mid-2010 sort of era, around about 2015, the MacBook Air became Apple's most popular selling MacBook they were selling every single year. And to this day, the 13-inch MacBook Air is the most popular MacBook Apple still sell right now. Moving on though, in 2018 we got another redesign again, and this time we got things like a Retina display added to the MacBook Air. And then in 2020 we also got the M1 MacBook Air, and it was one of the first devices to get an Apple Silicon chipset put inside it. Then, only last year in 2022, around about 4 or 5 years later, Apple introduced the brand new MacBook Air, like what I have right here, with the M2 chipset inside it. It's a fantastic new design, and we also got a brand new sort of midnight color like what you can see here, and it is an absolutely beautiful machine. The MacBook Air is regarded as sort of the everyday machine, as it were, from Apple. So this is kind of the sort of MacBook if you want to do web browsing, if you want to do some shopping, or let's say you want to do social media catch up, or let's say you even want to do some light photo and video editing too. This is like the MacBook to get your hands on, and that's why it is so popular, because for basically probably about 95% of people's needs out there who just need a standard kind of MacBook or a laptop device, this MacBook is absolutely perfect. Now, I say it's perfect, but there's probably one thing that's missing on this MacBook that a lot of people want from it, and that is for it to actually have a bit more of a larger display. Now, we do have, say, the 16-inch MacBook Pro, well, it's definitely a larger MacBook, but it's also quite a bit more pricier than, say, the M2 MacBook Air with a 13-inch display. If you want to upgrade by just literally having a larger screen for those 3 extra inches, you're going to have to basically pay over double the price of a MacBook Air. The current M2 MacBook Air, the cheapest one you can get right now, costs $1,199 US, whereas the cheapest sort of 16-inch MacBook Pro with an M2 Pro chipset inside at its lowest sort of configuration will come in at $2,499 US. As you can fully understand, a lot of people are not willing to spend double the price of one of these to get themselves a 16-inch MacBook Pro just to increase their screen by an extra 3 inches or so. So straight away, you can see that Apple need to sort of bridge that gap right now. Now, you could also argue at this stage, well, Matt, there is the 14-inch MacBook Pro, what about that? But still, even that costs $800 more than the actual M2 MacBook Air. And again, just to get, say, about half an inch bigger screen, it's not really worth it going for that MacBook Pro and paying $800 for just basically half an inch screen bigger sort of display. Well, the good news is it does seem like that gap is finally going to be filled. We've had lots of leaks and rumours floating around for ages that a larger MacBook Air is on its way. It's basically going to be the sort of larger brother of the normal MacBook Air, very similar sort of configuration, but mainly the big difference is just definitely that larger display. And personally, in my opinion, I think this larger MacBook Air is going to be coming in around about $1,399 US. And you're probably wondering, wondering how I've managed to guess that kind of price range, well, to be honest, it kind of makes sense if we look at the MacBook Pros that we have right now, the 14-inch and also the 16-inch models. Right now, if you configured a 14-inch MacBook Pro with the sort of standard M2 Pro chipset inside it, so this is the one with the 12-core CPU and also the 19-core GPU, and also this is also the lowest sort of MacBook Pro M2 that you can get, or M2 Pro you can get inside a 16-inch MacBook Pro, you can see here the difference between them is only $200. So right now, if the M2 MacBook Air is costing us $1,199 or basically $1,200, it makes sense for the 15-inch MacBook Air to come in around about $200 more, what will basically be about $1,399 or $1,400. And this to me makes a good sort of price sort of range for Apple to make this MacBook Air at. Because like I said, it would basically mean $600 more, you can get the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And remember, that Pro range is for the pros. And this sort of MacBook Air and the larger MacBook Air is kind of sort of for everybody else out there. And there still needs to be a bit of a gap in the sort of price range. So $600, in my opinion, is more than enough. And I definitely think that this MacBook Air is going to be a great model for Apple to sell. As I've said already, I think the 15-inch MacBook Air will look very similar to this 13-inch MacBook Air that we have right now. I don't believe we're going to be getting any more ports or anything like that. Right now, we do actually just have sort of the MagSafe port, and we also have the two USB ports, or USB-C Thunderbolt ports here as well. And I think this is going to be the same on the 15-inch MacBook Air. Remember, at the end of the day, with the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros, they are basically both identical in design on the outside and also with ports. You get the same amount of ports, and you also get basically the same similar design for both of these devices. And it makes sense for Apple to do exactly the same here with a larger MacBook Air. Remember, we have this same sort of idea with iPhones right now. So for example, the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Plus look basically the same. And then the same with the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. They just look exactly the same, except for that one model is slightly larger. And I believe Apple are not going to go out of their routine and change things to make things a bit different for the 15-inch MacBook Air. Personally, in my opinion, it's going to be the same as this MacBook Air that we have right here, but just basically with a larger display inside it, and basically all the same technology too. So what I mean by same technology, if the 13-inch MacBook Air right now just has a Retina display, and that's an LED one, expect the 15-inch model to have exactly the same at a 60 Hz. We're probably not going to get that ProMotion put inside a MacBook Air. It just doesn't make sense for Apple to do that with a larger model of this model that we have here. Another question that's been asked around right now is, will the new 15-inch model have an M2 or an M3 chipset inside it? And I think that still needs to be decided right now. And one of my other videos that I made recently talked about this, of when we could possibly either see an M2 or an M3 inside the 15-inch MacBook Air. And do check out that video on my channel if you want more information about that. But what I do think is the configurations for the MacBook Airs will always be the same going forwards, just like the MacBook Pros, the 14 and 16-inch models will always be the same configuration, always going forwards. It just makes sense for Apple to do this. But there is one extra feature, one extra thing I do want to talk about, where I'd say the 15-inch MacBook Air will excel on every other MacBook that exists out there. And I believe that is to do with battery life. Right now, if we look at the M2 MacBook Air, the battery life on that is 18 hours in this 13-inch sort of configuration that we have right now, or it's up to basically 18 hours. If we have a look here at the MacBook Pros, including that M2 MacBook Pro, the 13-inch with the touch bar, you can see right here that we actually get up to 20 hours inside that. Then the 14-inch model, because it's got that M2 Pro chipset, what's draining a bit more power inside it, you get up to 18 hours. And then the 16-inch model, you can see you get up to 22 hours. Personally, because we're going to have the M2 chipset or even an M3 chipset, no Pro or no Max inside the 15-inch MacBook Air, I personally believe because of its larger size and basically larger body at the bottom, you're going to be able to fit some more battery size inside that. Also, Apple will be able to put a bigger battery inside. And personally, with that efficiency of just being a standard M2 or M3 chipset, I personally believe that we'll probably be getting maybe 23 or even 24-hour battery life in a MacBook Air. Well, it's absolutely amazing. It will definitely be the sort of longest, largest sort of battery life inside a MacBook ever. And remember, at the end of the day, we do actually have the same right now with the iPhone. So the iPhone 14 Plus, funny enough, in majority of tests, not all, but most tests, the actual battery life is actually longer than what we get in, say, the 14 Pro Max. It's not by much, but it's only slightly more, but still it does hail to having the best battery life in an iPhone. And I think we're going to be seeing the same with the 15-inch MacBook Air 2. The final thing I want to say about the 15-inch MacBook Air is right now, as I said near the beginning of this video, the 13-inch MacBook Air are the best-selling MacBooks that Apple sell right now. And I believe that is going to change possibly in the next year or two. I personally believe that this 15-inch MacBook Air is going to basically just break through and everybody will want to buy that instead for the majority of users. Don't get me wrong, we will still have a lot of people buying the 13-inch MacBook Air, a lot of people buying, say, the 13-inch MacBook Pro, the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros too. They'll be super popular as well, but I just believe that this new sort of 15-inch MacBook Air, especially if it has the longest battery life out there, and also that it's in such a cool and sleek design, similar to this 13-inch one, and it's also quite light too, I believe this will be Apple's best-selling MacBook that they'll be selling every single year. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Apple need to make a 15-inch MacBook Air? And if they do you think it will also be the best-selling MacBook that Apple will sell? I would love to know your thoughts below in the comments, so please do put them down there. And also on that note, guys, it's also time to wrap up this video. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. Also at the same time, if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews, and comparisons, please also make sure you subscribe to this channel and also hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I will see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.